We are live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our last NDIS Essentials call. My name is Sandy. I have Steph Wicks, my co-founder, here with me, and we have Daniel from Afea here today to join us. Sarah couldn't make it, so we have Daniel and his expertise, which is wonderful. So he's a care manager for Afea, and he's actually worked sort of in the disability sector in a different capacity in the Northern Territory for a little while at Anglicare and with some local councils. So it's really great to be able to get his expertise today. So we did get a few questions from our Thrive Travel & Co Connect group. So we're going to be covering those questions today. If anything comes up during the call, feel free to comment and we'll try and get to those as best we can. If we can't give you a definitive answer because it's just one of those topics, the NDIS, we will do our best to find that out and then contact you about what the response might be. So we were also today going to talk about some different wording around goals. We're going to do a little bit of that, but what we're going to do is we're actually going to get you like a template, or we're calling it a cheat sheet, around some commonly applied for supports and how you might word your goals so they align with the NDIS legislation and language. So welcome, Daniel. Thanks for joining us on the call today.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to give my some words on NDIS. Thank you so much.
That's awesome.
No worries, thank you. So let's get straight into the questions, I think, because there were some really great ones. We're going to try and answer them specifically, but we're going to talk around the main topics in the question so that everybody can benefit from the answers. So we had a question from Tabitha in our Connect community group, and her question was, how do we go about planning a planning meeting for ongoing assistance past 7 years old once early intervention has passed? And if we're still working on a diagnosis due to clarification and a process of multiple diagnosis. So it sounds like there's a lot going on in that particular situation. So I suppose if we could talk a little bit around that transition period from going from early intervention to the next stage of funding. I'm not sure people are even aware that happens, but maybe if you can give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, like when we start with, like, say, early intervention, it is about providing a quick support for the kid before there is 7. So it is more easy to assess than NDIS. So this will give you more funding with your capacity building. So this trying to say is this is providing support. So for now, so that your future will get better or you get more, you will develop more capacity in future. So it's more about that. So when you're going from 7 to 8, now you will have a plan review during that time. So during the plan review, your planner will decide if you have achieved those, if you have developed that individual capacity, have you built that capacity or no? If you have built the capacity, then NDIS might say you don't need any further support, so your NDIS plan will be no more. But if there in the plan review it says you need the further support, then you will have your individualized plan. So this is how it works. But it looks like in Tabitha's case, it looks like she still needs a support, but they haven't been able to diagnose it as any disability. So she has to try to get put OT reports or reports from the therapist or space or psychologist just to prove that the disability is still there and it's permanent. So those reports will help how to get this NDIS funding on going onward. So for that case, you also can put some written evidence or the acknowledgement statement saying this is the situation, so this is the support still required, and that one the NDI can have a look at that and make a decision. And if they go on your favor, then you will still, that's good. But if it doesn't go, then you can still put for a review. I would suggest it's really good to get some very good report writing from the like you might have seen by OT or space during the 7 years period. Collect those evidence and submit those evidence, and the good thing is, like, you should be ready before it's 7 years. So if you think your child still needs that support, it's really good to be prepared. Speak with your support coordinator if you have one. If you know, then speak with your local area coordinators and the one you have, and then try to start building a plan, how you're going to present during the plan review, so that you will still be supported ongoing onward. So it's about preparing before you go to that stage. If you come to that last point and it might take some time to diagnose that disability or times to do those reports, then you might have a gap there. So it's really better to prepare that before you come to that
Earlier.
point.
Yeah,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I think everybody sort of looks at. Well, I had a call from my NDIS for my review, and it was 3 months before the plan's due, and it sort of caught me a bit off guard. And I had started thinking about it, but I hadn't actually made any calls. And we know how long things can take with psychologists and OTs and speeches, and how long those reports can take to write. So it is a really great message to be prepared. And also to have as much evidence, I suppose, as you can, even if the diagnosis as such isn't labelled. But just because, from my understanding, the NDIS don't actually require a label of a diagnosis as long as you show that there's a disability that requires support. Yeah.
Is that correct? Interesting, because with Charlie, she's I remember she's quite complex, so we've had to really fight and talk to a lot of different people to find someone who could look beyond the check boxes and also look at like high functioning autism in girls, dyspraxia, identifying that. But I remember when she was diagnosed with dyspraxia, the doctor was like, sounds terrible, but she was like, yes, we can do that now because that would look really good on the reports to get her the funding that she needs. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean, yes? Like, this is awful.
I think it's easier. But if you can show that there's a disability or that there's needs that require support, then I believe that's how it works.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's just, and I know our LAC was like, we really need to be getting this tangible information in the lead up to her turning 7 or to her starting school. And I remember going like, what does this mean? But obviously, as time has passed, it makes more sense. And now we have, concrete information to go off. But I suppose it's really important for parents to know as well that if they fall into that category, that they really need to like be proactive and try and push forward and get the reports and talk to different doctors and specialists that can support their needs. That's something I've learned as well.
Yeah,
So
I would suggest her, like, there is a form called disability evidence form, something like disability evidence form. So there's a special form designed by NDIS. So she can complete that form or get a help from her GP to complete that form. That's more specific about what supports she needs. It's not about diagnosis. It's about what supports, daily supports she needs. What is the hardest day of the life? Like what do you feel? Have a hard day of life. So those things can be included in that form, and that can be used as evidence too. So they call is disability evidence form. So you can use that form as evidence as well.
it's good to know.
what is
Yeah.
All right. So the second question was around choosing a support worker. So I don't know if this will come into your sphere of expertise, Daniel, but so the question was from Amber, how do you know you're choosing the right one or the wrong one?
Yes. Currently, as a part of care manager, I am the one who is doing the care plan. So I should be aware of the support worker that matches to the participants. So from my point of view, this like it's always good to ask what you are after. So if you are looking a support worker for your child, it's your choice and control, your decisions who you wanna have as a support worker. So you can always ask what gender, age, what specific qualities or qualifications you want. It's always good to ask and get from the providers what they have. So I think when you're choosing the support workers, see like your child may be interested in a sport. So try to get somebody who is interested in a sport. So your support worker doesn't feel like he's working. He feel like he's playing or he's doing some activity with somebody trying to match your try to match your child needs with the support worker. So if you are looking something from the bigger providers, you can always ask. It's about asking. So you can always put a point, dot points when you ask support worker. I want of this age, this gender, this religion, this language, whatever you want. Just put those tick box and ask your provider. I want the support worker in this field, and try to, and the provider can definitely find for that. But if you are looking something from your own way or private, which is self-managed funding, so always try to look who is specialized in that category, who has already previously worked with the persons with similar disability, or who has some qualifications on that one. So in that way, you would definitely find a good one. But as I said, it's your choice and control. If you don't feel like your child is not getting with through with the right one, you can change at any time. Just it
Mm.
will be your choice. So just
And I
talk to the providers. I don't want this one. I want to change. So that will be.
And I think so many parents don't know that that's an option. Like
Yeah.
it's actually an option to do that, to ask in the first place. And then if you're not comfortable, to feel brave enough or courageous enough to be able to say, actually, this isn't working for us
Not a
or my
good fit.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have that choice. So it's good to know that parents can be empowered by that knowledge.
We
Sure.
Yeah.
have done that with Imogen. So Imogen's 9 and almost she's 9.5, and very particular about who she likes to work with. She's quite non-verbal, however. She has a few words, and she makes it very clear when when there's someone that she doesn't vibe with. And I actually think that's really important for them to be able to express as well. So us being able to advocate in that respect, to just say, and it's not anything against the person as such, it's just like, this just isn't a good fit. So we're very specific with who we ask for to work with Imogen. So I really like young female support carers to come in, because I want Imi to feel like they're her friend as such. It's not like a chore to be with them. And like, she likes to jump on the trampoline. She's very fast and likes to run. So I need someone who can chase after her if that is the case. So we're real specific. And I think the more specific you can get with your instructions about who you're looking for, the better, right?
Definitely. And also the good thing is that, like, some, in my view, some support worker might be great, and then maybe that may not match with the provider. It's some personal feelings, you may not be get along with them. So I will be sending best. When we recruitment, we do the best recruitment, and then when we send, try to send the best one. But there is something that doesn't get attached, then you can change it. So every time we have assessments with the participants, we explain to them that this is not the end, so this is just the start. So we can keep on changing until you get along with. But we just need the feedback. So until and unless you ask, we won't know it. So you don't have to take it as a pressure. Just, you're paying for that. This is your right. So you just expose, or you give a feedback. Then we will do our best to find you the appropriate one, or we can send somebody who you.
That's
So
good. It's good that you have. Good to
Yeah.
have that feedback system, so people don't feel awkward when they've got to have that conversation. Because I think people in general like to avoid confrontation and feel bad when they've got to do those things. Like, we were having a chat with one of our Premier members the other night who wasn't happy with, I think it was her speech or OT or something along those lines, and we're like, you employ them. Like, it's okay to just say, I don't think this is a really good fit. We're just going to try someone different and see if that works better. But it can be, the first few times, feel a bit awkward. So it's great that you guys have that feedback system. All right. So then the next question was from Amy, and it was around transport funding. And we were just talking about this before we went live, and I had never heard of this type of funding. So the question from Amy was, my daughter received transport level 2 funding in her NDIS plan, and they pay money each fortnight into her bank account. Does she need receipts for her transport? And what does she do with the money she doesn't use on transport?
Okay, yeah, like transport, there are now two types of transport. Now, this transport she's talking about is the transport periodic funding that NDIS puts into nominated account for the participants to get out by herself. So suppose the participants is going to engage into group activities, or going to school, or going for work. So she can't take a public transport. So there is a special need of taxi, special bus, or special vehicle. Then the NDIS will allocate some fund, and that will be directly put it into nominated account for participants. So that's the funding. And I've never heard anything about, or there's nothing mentioned in the NDIS saying you need to submit the receipt. So that's your funding. That's put into your account for you to get out from the home and get engaged with the community and go to schools or go to work. So you don't have to submit the receipt. But from my understanding, if you are thinking that you are spending more than what they have allocated, it's really good to save those receipts and present during the time of plan review so that you can be allocated for level 3 now or further up fundings. So in that way, you don't have to from your pocket. So this funding is coming into your account. You don't have to return it back if you haven't spent it. But if you are using more than that, you won't be able to claim as well during that plan period. So it's really good to keep these receipts if you are using more, but you don't have to worry if you are not using all of them. That will be
Sure.
your money.
So they don't have to be submitted as such, but if you think you're going to overspend what you've been allocated, then save the receipt so you've got proof of what you are spending on transport.
Yeah, but you will be able to claim that, but that will be useful for your next plan. So
Yes.
it might be able to, they might be able to put into level 3 in the next plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And even
sorry, you go. No, you go.
Yeah, about the next funding that provider charge is a different one, and that will come from your core supports, which the provider is able to charge. Now, what happens with the now is if your support worker is coming from one participant to another participants, the NDIS said that now they will be able to charge 30 minutes of transport cost to the second participants. So suppose from participant A to participants B, if a support worker finish at supporting participants A and going to participant B, then they can charge up to 30 minutes from the core support, which will be discussed with the participants.
Okay, so but what if you don't know that before you get your plan, and that's really like a scheduling issue? Because how does that work?
But like before, NDIS is going to put some extra money on the core at the moment for that transport, and which will be parts provider only can charge if they have a participant going from one to another point, and it won't be charged if it's the first participant of the day or the only one.
Okay.
And
there is just a transport question.
Sorry, yeah.
There's a transport question. That's okay. In the thread, we've got a bit of delay. I don't know if it's my internet or. So Tracy says, is that transport funding usually when they leave school?
No, that transport funding can be to go to school. That can be to go to school, but just the case I'm trying to say is the participants needs a special transport like a taxi or a special vehicle.
Yeah.
It doesn't. If the participant can take a school bus or something, then they won't be able to fund that.
So my daughter has transport from home to school and back, and it's listed in her NDIS plan, but we don't actually see the budget for that because it's like through the old Department of Education transport system. So I believe they're transitioning that funding over too. So the NDIS is now paying for that transport. Is that correct?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. They should be paying for that. Yeah.
Did you want to do the next question, Steph?
Yeah, I will. So Kimberly wrote through, it's all about consumables. So how best to get a consumables budget when your plan managed? Or is that an open big question to ask?
Yeah, like it's so broad that it doesn't matter. Like,
tell us a bit about consumables, what they mean, and then how people can best align their goals to get what they need.
I think it's more about for any plan manager, self-plan manager, agency manager. Consumable is there. You can expect more funding in the consumable if your report says you will be needing small assistive technology equipments or items. Suppose you will be using continuing aids or you will be using small assistive technologies. If those things are included in the report, then you will have a consumable budget. So it's more about what is included in the report.
In the report.
Yeah. So in the consumable usually is something that's like you can purchase up below $1,500 for one transaction. So if your report says you will be using a lot of small assistive technologies, so then there will be money in the consumable. It doesn't matter plan manager, self manage, agency manage, as long as your report says you will be need that throughout the year, then there will be the money for consumable.
So we have a consumable budget for Imogen because she still requires like continence aids at nighttime. So we have funding for that. We also got some funding because she uses visual supports, and
So-
I have to do a lot of printing and laminating and all that sort of stuff that, you might use it and then it's gone. So, we've got different goals that align with the different consumables, I suppose, that have been listed.
Yeah, suppose like I know somebody who is a special cops, special countries, and special things, so they cannot. You don't have to get a special funding for that. That can come onto the consumables. So those fundings will go onto the consumables because
Yeah.
they are small items, or small spends, so they can be purchased on consumables.
And just in the wording of Kimberly's question, when she said consumables when plan managed, it shouldn't really matter how it's managed, should it?
It doesn't matter.
Sure. Yeah. It's just that as long as it aligns with your goals and the plan, then yeah.
Then
Okay.
there will be,
Yeah.
Tracy's just asked in the comments section, how do we know what we need in consumables / AT funding in advance as we start new therapies?
Okay, so that will be from your acknowledgement, your evidence. When you have a plan review, you will be included in the part of the plan. So you can say, she needs a special cup to drink, she needs continent tears. So you can say those things, whatever required there. Anyway, those questions will be asked during the first plan or during the plan review by the planner. So if you try to tell them the best things you need it for to make her life independent, and that will be included in the plan, and in that way that funding will be in the consumable before the therapies. And the therapist can be when the report comes back, if you think the therapist reports would say need extra, then we can go for review and get more for the consumable.
Sure. I wonder if Erin in our group knows that special cups and stuff can be done in consumables. I know Sarah, her daughter, uses a special cup and she had to order them from overseas because they stopped making them here. But she can only drink out of this certain straw. I know there's so many parents I talk to them like, oh, they took this away and now we can't find it anywhere. Shani also said her psychologist visits them at home due to COVID and my kids increased anxiety, and she also charges an additional transport fee for 30 minutes on top of the visit. This obviously will chew into our funding plan, which we received pre-COVID. How is NDIS taking this into consideration for further plans?
I think from my understanding that she is not willing the therapist to come home and do it from the telehealth from the video. So from March, the NDIS said that if you think your OT or speech or therapist can be done through the video, you can purchase an iPad up to $600 to run those therapies. So if you think that can be done from remotely or can be done from the video, you can ask OT to write put a statement saying that this because of this COVID pandemic, the participants would still want to go through the therapies, but that will be not face to face, that will be through the video. So for that we would need assistive technology, and then she will be able to purchase that.
But if they can't, so for example, like my daughter wouldn't do telehealth. So, then if the only option was for them to come and have that transport fee, because of COVID, is there a space for a small review to say, well, we need a top up of funding for transport because the therapist has to come to the house, or do you have to wait?
I don't think just for that 30 minutes time period there will be a review for that, but I've also some evidence sometimes the NDIS, you will just make a direct contact and then there won't be a plan review, but there will be top up on the budget, on the fund.
Okay.
So try with speaking with your local area coordinator and say, because of these reasons, my funding is going earlier and I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get.
Yeah.
And they might be able to top up with some extra funding for that. That might be idea.
That's great. Shani, so maybe that's what you do, call up your LAC or the NDIS. We actually went into the NDIS office in Penrith the other week and they were really helpful. So, might be worth definitely having that conversation to see whether that part can be topped up, if it's 30 minutes a week or how often you need it.
I had that evidence in the past. So some fundings were allocated without a review or anything. It was just top up.
Especially in today's climate with what's going on and with COVID and all the complications that come with that. And I know Shani's daughters do have some anxiety issues, and they've actually been exacerbated because of lockdown and, having to stay home. So there's definitely a case there for, needing the services to come in. Tracy, I agree. Not all telehealth therapy works. Totally get it. I think in some cases it's really great, and I heard lots of families have done really well with it, and it saved them lots of time. And then for other families, it's just like, I mean, it depends on the therapy. It depends how engaging it is, what they can do online. So
it was a nightmare for our family. I thought it worked quite well with Charlie because he loves devices, and she was just like, no, that is not my therapist. My therapist comes to my school in person. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to work.
It looks a bit different. Okay, so there were some questions around, Samantha said, what do the changes to core funding mean for self-managed early intervention participants? What sort of things are now possible?
I think, like what we were discussing earlier, if she's talking about because of this pandemic or overall changes, like overall changes from the core funding, NDIS make it more flexible. Like you can use core funding flexibly within four categories now. Can be used for transport, consumable, daily activities, and community access. So before, the funding used to come as a daily activity certain amount, and you get community access certain amount. If you could not be able to use daily activities into community access. But now you can use all four buckets are open, so you can use either of them. If you think like you don't need any daily activities, then you can use that fund for the community access. So this is more flexible now for as a core support. This is as overall, but with COVID-19, like I said before, they have because of COVID-19, NDIS has approved to purchase some small assistive technology up to $1,500 from the core budget. That would support them at home. So that might be able to communicate with the family, or that might be able to help them to engage, or that might be able to do the therapy. So you can use the core budget to do that. So I don't know what she's talking about, but that's more flexible in the way around.
Yeah. So with the buckets being interchangeable, so that might mean, so say if you had core funding for daily activities, but then you needed someone to help you access the community now because your child's got really anxious when having to be at home for so long and they need extra support, you could technically employ a support person to come out and help you access the community.
Definitely, from the daily activities. Budget could be used from the daily activities if you don't have enough in the community access.
Okay, great. Cool. Yeah. All right. So there was a question around home modifications. Now, I know this can be quite specific for the situation. So I just wanted to, so Lisa's question was around, Sandra's question was around home modifications and the best wording. They've had some difficulties accessing that. So without getting too specific, because you haven't seen their home or what modifications, what are some tips around the home modifications application wording, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, like first thing is like home modifications, you definitely need to come from the OT. So it will be best to come from the OT because it involves about the safety of the participants. So some else may not be capable of deciding which the participants. So that's the reports should be coming through the OT saying these are the home modifications we need. So once this comes from the OT, then the NDIS would definitely action that. And also when you see the OT, it will be best for you to explain the OT and do the site audit, like for the OT to come into your home and do the reporting and explain your OT best, like in the best way that would make your child's life easier to move around the house or do the things more independently. So I think it's more about putting through somebody who is qualified. If I would go and say I need modifications for my kid at my home, they would not approve that because
they need to be specific.
What modifications is good for my child. But if you have somebody who is qualified that, and they would definitely will act on that.
So Sandra, in her example, said the NDIS OT assessor said that
Yeah.
her daughter doesn't qualify because she's not bedridden or in a wheelchair. But surely that's not the only
No, like
reason.
it can't be only those points. Like it doesn't mean that you only get home modifications because you are in bedridden or wheelchair. You can get different home modifications. Your kitchen might be modified. You maybe still able to walk, but your kitchen needs to be modified so you can prepare your meal. Or your
Yes.
bathroom can have a handrail so you can have a shower by yourselves. So
Yeah.
there is different home modifications. It doesn't mean that you are not bedridden, you don't get any modifications for your home.
So would you suggest she contacts a different OT?
Definitely, she would have to
Yeah.
contact the OT and try to explain what is blocking her to access around the home, what is the main problem, and then OT will work out the best solution for that, and then that will put into the report, and that modification will be definitely carried.
Okay,
And I
cool. So
suppose-
Sandra, go get a new OT and get a new assessment.
And you know what? There's a little bit of education there and research that we could do from our end as well, because she does mention that OT advised that it was as per the NDIS guidelines. So there's obviously a miscommunication there from the OT and the NDIS and her experience. So, you know, it's worth checking out for sure.
Or maybe the OT isn't educated on what the actual NDIS guidelines are, which you would think they would be if that's their job to go in and assess home modifications. But
easy to answer.
Sometimes it's not always like.
Yeah. There was a question from Lisa around, so she says, if self-managed and wanting to purchase therapy equipment such as climbing gyms, etc., to continue therapy at home, is this able to be just purchased without a report from any line that falls under core, or are there limits in place? So I believe you said $1,500 was the limit, right? And she says, for example, the physio has suggested a Vuli system for outdoor physiotherapy to work in with his goals.
Okay, so first thing is there's already answer there. It's already suggested by a physio, so it's already something in the report. So if the physio can put it into the report, NDIS would allow to purchase that. So if it's more than 1,500, then we might have to go for a review, and there might be funding to purchase that equipment. But if this is below 1,500, she can purchase from the core budget, core funding as a consumable. And it's also, we can think about reasonable necessity. So NDIS always talks about reasonable necessity. So we can say, is this reasonable? Is it cheaper options for her rather than taking to the gym to do at home, and it is really necessary to achieve her goals. If she will match those points, then they can definitely purchase that. It's always the point of reasonable necessity if you are purchasing anything. So if you are purchasing that gym equipment, we have to make sure that is not expensive than taking her to a gym. And we have to consider that this is according to her goals. So this is something she needs to achieve her goals. Then you can purchase.
Sure. And Lisa, it might be a perfect time to talk about that, because it's maybe you can't go to the gym. So, you know, maybe it's the perfect time to be talking to the NDIS about that. There was one other one from Tracy. So her daughter, I think it's a daughter, wants to engage in cooking classes. So she said, how do I word to ask for assistance for groups? So, for example, cooking classes that could be funded through the NDIS. All the groups in our limited small town are either not age appropriate or high disability needs, which are usable through the NDIS. But if I ask to do a cooking class not disability specific, the class or group isn't funded, even though the goals relate to independence. So her goals relate to developing independence, but she's finding that the class that she wants to send her daughter to isn't funded.
Yeah, I think I've come through a lot of the situations when I was working in very remote locations. So I did have some participants who were living 500 kilometers from the nearest group activities. And the NDIS will fund her for the group activities in the community where there is only one participant. There is no any groups. So it looks like the similar situation. She wants to engage her to the cooking activities, and she doesn't have an appropriate matching group in the community. So the first thing is, I think she would have to prefer to get one-on-one support. So try to find providers who have a support worker who is good at cooking, or who have some skills about it, and try to engage your child in one-on-one support, which will be more appropriate and more skill developing than going in a group. So that might be one option rather than going in a group. And if you don't have enough funding for that, you can go back to NDIS and say this is a goal to achieve life skills, and there is no any group like group activities I can engage my kid to. So we have one-on-one support.
Hmm.
So that
And I
will be
suppose if
more funding.
what if their goal is around developing independence, but then they've got another goal to build relationships with peers?
Yeah.
Wouldn't a group cooking class satisfy those goals?
Like she said, there may not be age matching, so she may not be able to go and do the cooking class with the 50 years, and then there may not be any social reaction or connections. But there are any play group or after school hour group who are running some other activities, and you might engage her there, and that might be cooking as well as building those relationship as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. And also we can do is like if you are a self-managed, the good point is you can get a local chef or cook from the restaurant, get into your home, ask him to teach you cooking skills, and you can pay them more than the NDIS funding amount too.
Tracy's just said she doesn't want a one-to-one support worker because it's not like it's the goal is for her to make friends within her age group. So
The two goals there.
yes, so if it's two goals, would it make a difference whether she was self-managed or plan managed then to be able to access that? Because I know you can access different services that aren't NDIS registered when you're self-managed and plan managed.
If you are a self-managed, you also can do like you can find some other, I don't know how there is, but we can find some other participants who might be interested in cooking as well, and you can run that activity in your home or in participants home, and that will engage 2 or 3 participants together, which will be cost effective as well as that will be social connection as well. So it's more about going exploring the community and see what is available. So as you said, there is no any group, but you can look for other participants with the same goals or same interest, and then you can run those activities together. But
I think she's saying there is a group, but it's not an NDIS registered provider. So there is a cooking class that her daughter can access. That is a group, then satisfies the goals. But I think her plan manager has said that she can't pay for it with NDIS funds.
Oh, just because she's a plan managed.
Yeah. So if she's
she's plan managed.
Yeah. So first thing will be she will have to go for agency, so self-managed, so she can pay for that. Otherwise, you'll have to find some NDIS provider who runs those activities. But I've also found other thing important is if you know some providers, if you go and speak to the provider saying this is what I'm looking for my kid, and in that way there might be somebody who has come to the provider and asked for the same things, and the provider will start thinking that there is a demand for that, and they will start doing these activities. So it's really good to go and speak to them and see what is available for your case. For now, I think if you have a plan managed, then it's really good to go to self-managed, so you can still send your
so she could pay for that if she was self-managed. Yeah. Okay. And then there was a question, I think, from Shani in the comments. It's a long one. I'll have to read it out. Will the NDIS be more open to fund social participation activities for 8 to 12-year-olds now due to COVID? So usually that age group is not funded for this category, but early childhood and teenagers tend to be. I'm coming from the angle that COVID has significantly reduced social interaction opportunities for many children, especially those with disabilities, and there'll need to be extra support for special needs children to adjust to apply skills required to overcome challenges.
Yes, like as she said, that usually those community participants are not very common to that age group. But as of situations now, if we can really that with our goals, if we can come saying this, exposing to the community or going out to the community is a part of my goal, then it can be funded. The NDIS hasn't come back with any update at the moment saying we will start putting funds for that. But if we can put that as a part of your goal and go back to NDIS and say, I need to access the community because of to achieve these goals. If you can really connect them together, then definitely there will be fund for that.
Well, and Emmy has funding for that, Shani, and she's 9.5. So it does happen. I think you just need the right backup report.
Yeah.
I will share some of my wording with you, Shani, that we've used on Imogen's plan, if that will help. Yeah, Tracy says she's called heaps of services and there's still no groups. I think it's tricky. Sounds like it's tricky in the area that you're living in. I will keep my thinking hat on for you, Tracy. Just let my brain percolate a little bit on that.
It really seems like if you have flexibility to be self-managed, then it's really the answer for her to access more places in a limited environment. But in an ideal world, you could use that funding anywhere, but it's about knowing what's going to fit you.
And I think also, Tracy, you don't have to, and you may know this, you don't have to self-manage the whole lot. You could just self-manage that part. So if you didn't want to manage all of the funds, you could just ask for that part to be self-managed.
Yeah. Also, if you're not aware of that, in the self-managed, there's also a fund for you to somebody to manage your account, manage your bills, and manage your somebody. Like you're self-managed, but you can be supported by NDIS to pay your bills or to those invoicing things. If you don't have that, you'll be funded for that.
Yeah, it's definitely more flexible to be. We've always been self-managed, and it's way more flexible. We can access so many different services compared to NDIA or plan managed. So, I mean, there's more work, but I get better services. So
I found initially, like for anyone just starting out in this process, having it managed first by either like a external service or being plan managed was easier to start with because it gave me an introduction into what we needed, and then we were just doing speech, so it just kind of was like way back. And now as her needs are getting a bit more complex, and I want her to help with like social interactions and anxiety and stuff, it's really good to have that flexibility and be self-managed because we've got choice and we can choose who we want to work with. And
We'll just quickly answer this last question. I'm just mindful of time. We've gone a little bit over. Tracy just said she thought self-managed and plan managed were the same, just the plan manager pays the bills. But from my experience, I feel like the plan managers sometimes are like the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
It's almost like you've got money there, but then they have to say yes before you can actually access it.
Gatekeepers. I love it.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're trying to say. It's like sometimes plan managers might come back and say, you can't purchase this, you can't do this, you can't do this activity. Yeah. But if you're self-managed, you can do in the way you want. You can ask your next door to look after your kid and you pay them. So it's not same, it's very, very flexible. With self-managed, you are very flexible with everything.
I mean, you still have to make sure it aligns with the goals, because if NDIS come and ask, then you've got to be able to show that it does. But I just feel like it's a little bit easier process.
There's no gatekeeper. Yeah, I like that word. No gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together a language cheat sheet, or Daniel and Sarah are going to put their thinking hats on. And we're going to get some wording around getting access to different therapies, support carers to help with community access or developing daily living skills, home modifications, technology, and then including support coordination and plan management. If there is any other topic or thing that you have tried to get funding for and not been able to, and you would like clarification around the wording, can you just comment on this thread, and we will add that to our list. And it may take us a week or two, but we're going to try and get back to you with a little template or cheat sheet or something to help you, because if you can get the right wording that aligns with the legislation of the NDIS, you're much more likely to get those goals approved. They like you to use their words as such.
Yeah, I also would like to add that there are so many providers now. They are helping with the pre-planning with free cost. So there are some great support coordinators who would be able to discuss about how to put the goals, how to put a report or put everything to get your best funding. Even you don't have a support coordination funding, you can get with those providers, and those providers will help you to get a best plan out of NDIS.
Yeah.
So get a help from the support coordinators. Even you don't have support funding, there are so many great support coordinators.
Yeah, it's been great to actually hear about that throughout this little series about how they can help, because I wasn't aware of them previously. All right, so that brings us to the end of our 4-part NDIS series. I suspect we may do another one going forward, because there's questions every day about the NDIS in our group. But we just want to thank Afea, Daniel, Sarah for their expertise in helping us out with running these. It's been such a wonderful resource for our parents to have, and yeah, we've loved partnering with you guys to bring this to our members. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for giving us opportunity to put those our views and ideas. Like everybody go through learning process. So NDIS is very new to everybody and everybody in learning phase. So it's really good to share what everybody has and understand each other. I think sharing is
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. If you would like any support with support coordination or services, Afea can help you with that. So please get in contact. So it's Afea Care Services. We'll put the link to their Facebook page in our comments. Well, Steph, the wizard will, the magical techno wizard. And if you are not in our Thrive Tribe & Co Connect support community group and you want to be, please just join from our public Facebook page. There is a link there. You click join the group and you'll be able to access that for free. So thanks for joining us, guys, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. See you. Have a good day.